they think about a person who has to make a decision this week. Do I pay a medical bill or do I pay the rent? What does that do to your thinking? It forces, it's what we call a scarcity mindset. It forces a short-term orientation. It forces you to think of everything as a trade-off decision. Pay the rent, pay the medical bill. Now think about somebody that has this scarcity mindset. So they live in a world of, I gotta get through this week, I gotta get through this month. And you walk in and say, well, if you want to start a business, you got to write a 5-year business plan. And I go, shit, I'm trying to get through the month. You want me to think 5 years ahead? You want me to put together projected pro formas for the next 3 to 5 years? It's an insurmountable task. It's such an insurmountable task that it stops them dead in their tracks. So the business plan is a good example of something you have to get past. If you wait around for every one of these entrepreneurs to write a business plan, there ain't going to be any businesses. So my advice to them is write a business plan, but start making sales. Open the door. Get to it. Act. Hopefully the business plan will catch up, but one has to appreciate the mindset. The third thing is unusual non-business distractions. We all have distractions in life, but a low-income person trying to start a business is probably working at least one other job to pay the bills. It's not like some college kid who can just delay life for a few years and throw themselves into a business and see where it goes. But their distractions are, my kid was inappropriately arrested yesterday. I got mugged on the way back to my apartment this morning. I'm about to get kicked out of my apartment. I have chronic health issues that I have to deal with because of food scarcity that's tied to a poor diet, and so you have these myriad factors that create significant distractions when I'm trying to think about who's my customer or what should my product mix look like or what have you. And the final issue is the lack of a safety net, which is tied to, most of these conversations begin and end with money. Well, these entrepreneurs have zero access to conventional debt. A bank won't touch them with a 10-foot pole. And I'm talking about a more flexible, liberal bank won't touch them. And they certainly have zero access to equity funding. It's just never going to happen. And so you've just eliminated all the conventional sources of money. Meanwhile, you're talking about a person who has a limited social network. And that limited social network means the kind of connections to people that can do this for you or open that door or get this for you are not there. Everything they have is in the venture. Everything they have is in the venture. And their network of friends and family is probably as poor as they are, so they don't have much to give them. And then you factor in the lack of any kind of benefits, any kind of health care, and so the existence of resource slack is zero. I'm not trying to paint a negative picture, I'm trying to suggest these are obstacles on top of the obstacles any entrepreneur faces. And so to help them from a mentoring standpoint, from the standpoint of what BizStarts is trying to do, is to begin with an intimate understanding of what they're up against. And I'm not talking about sympathy, I'm talking about empathy in terms of simply realizing that you've got to adjust your approach to their reality. So the program that we have in South Bend, we have in 7 cities now, and Milwaukee is one of those cities, is a 6-component program. And the components are meant to be interdependent and build upon one another. So it starts with 6 Saturdays of training. That training basically gets people on a single page in terms of fundamentals. It then moves to mentoring, and to the extent possible, we emphasize mentors who have entrepreneurial experience. From there, it goes to student consulting, where mentors provide guidance, advice, feedback, a sounding board. The student consultants actually do stuff. So a mentor isn't going to create a website for you, but a student will. A student can create a basic bookkeeping system for you, or a social media campaign for you, or help you with pricing, or register your business. So the 4th component is what we call community connection. And so about every 4 months, we try to have a event that connects. So if we connect these entrepreneurs that we're trying to assist, the issue is not connecting them with government or banks or the usual suspects. It's who can do the most for these businesses? Who can do the most for these businesses? Let me just ask that question. Who can do the most for these businesses?
Customers.
No.
Other businesses.
Other businesses. So how do we connect these entrepreneurs to the business community? You know, we hear all about the sharing economy. We think that's Uber or that's Airbnb, but in a time of sharing economy, the issue is how do we take these entrepreneurs and connect them with the business community for the purpose of, think about all that the business community can do, whether that's shared space, whether that's cooperative purchasing or procurement, because these entrepreneurs have real trouble. They buy at retail to sell at retail. Whether that's back office operational support, whether that's actually providing products and services, but there's just an immense number of ways that we can simply learn how to tap the business community to help these entrepreneurs get their footing, that it could be a game changer. There's also a pathway to microcredit that we provide. And then the last thing, which may surprise some of you, but if you ask the question, in the state of Wisconsin, in the last 12 months, or the last 5 years, how many businesses were started by people coming from disadvantaged circumstances? The state of Wisconsin doesn't have a clue. The city of Milwaukee doesn't have a clue. There is no data. The problem is when you register a business, you don't write down, oh, and I'm poor. And so we don't know what the startup rate is amongst the disadvantaged. We don't know what the success rate or failure rate is amongst those businesses. We don't know what the significant reasons they don't get traction are. There's no data. And so this program is tracking these entrepreneurs on 45 variables over 3 years to start to learn best practices, to start to learn what's working, what's not working, that sort of thing. So that's the basic program. And again, feel free to stop me anywhere you want. So one of the differences in our approach, and I don't know, Patrick, if you can help me pass these out.
Yes, sure.
But most, I'll give you these. So most programs, if you look at the, well, there's more of the story, but if you look at the so-called entrepreneurial ecosystem in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the evidence is pretty clear-cut that local ecosystems largely ignore the poor. They're interested in scalable ventures. They're interested in ventures that are going to create thousands of jobs. These ventures are not. But most of the existing programs to help entrepreneurs look at what we call outcome metrics. They want to know how many businesses got started, how many jobs got created, how much capital was attracted, how many got physical premises. Outcome metrics. Our whole approach focuses on what you might think of as input metrics, not just outcome metrics. So we've taken the entrepreneurial journey and we've broken it down into 80 steps, 80 activity steps. And we've organized those activity steps into 3 phases: pre-launch, launch and early operation, and stabilization. So note, there could be a 4th stage, growth. We're not worried about growth. There's other people who can help these businesses grow. We're trying to get them to sustainability, where they're generating a profit, where their business model works, where they're making money. So our experience is that progress begets progress. Our goal is, while an individual's in this program, which is meant to be a 10 to 11 month intervention, if the entrepreneur can take 15 or 20 activity steps with us, they will take 15 or 20 on their own. Activity begets activity. Progress begets progress. And so, to me, it only works if you focus one step at a time. Not, here's the whole thing, and you're too much to embrace when I'm dealing with scarcity mindset and literacy problems and non-business distractions and no safety net. And so this activity-based approach is essential to, in fact, the next phase of what we're trying to do is we're trying to build some capital so that we can, any person who participates in the program who completes 20 activity steps gets a $2,000 grant. Not a loan, but a grant. But the grant is tied to steps. And if you think about the beauty of the activity step sort of model, and you don't just focus, we do measure outcome metrics, but part of this whole journey is about human development. And so, even if they start something and it doesn't work out, the journey should poise them, better prepare them for other options in life. The more activity steps they've completed, the more human development has happened, the more they're going to come out of this, no matter what happens, better positioned. So that's kind of the method to the madness, or at least a key part of it. So the message is also, and this is a big mentoring issue, and it sort of touches on what Dan said at the outset here, but it's not just focusing on the business. If you go, well, I know what it takes to succeed in business, I'm going to give you a bunch of business advice without looking at the development of the person, you may be, speaking to the wall. So helping the individual develop, and I'll come back to what that means, and focusing on the business. But we tend to focus on the business. Here's what you got to do. Here's what you do, without thinking about the person themselves needs some development, and maybe I can assist with that as well. The other thing is, there's an interesting question. What do entrepreneurs create? And unfortunately, based on the media, based on what colleges teach when they teach entrepreneurship,